Welcome again to the channel. I am the Homesteading Chef, and so what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about chickens, about homesteading and reusing stuff, and we're going to make perfect scrambled eggs. So with chickens, I'm sure you've all heard by now that there is such a thing as chicken math, and this has to do with trying to figure out how many chickens you want or need and then ending up with way more than you anticipated. So one of the things that I love to do, and just to mention, you had better start enjoying eggs, right? You're going to have more eggs than you know what to do with. A lot of people like to sell them. I just like to eat them and use them as ingredients and all that jazz. And one of the best things that you can do with your eggs, and you see I've already got a couple of eggshells in here. This is my little compost bin. I throw all my vegetable waste, onion ends, shallot ends, peels, coffee grounds, eggshells, whatever I've got into that, and I go and dump it out in my compost, which is behind here. And that adds a lot of good stuff back into the soil. It makes your soil healthy and really invites a very beneficial microbiome to your garden. And with that, I don't feel bad about wasting stuff, right? So as long as it is a vegetable product or eggshells or something like that, it goes into my compost, and that makes my soil even better. So it contributes kind of indirectly to my food, but I don't feel like I'm throwing something away, which is important because I really do hate wasting food. But when it comes down to it, for example, in here I've got some parsley that kind of went bad. We bought it during the freeze, and I never ended up really using it. So I ended up chopping it up and throwing it in here. I'm about to go dump it over into the compost bin. But that's an important part of homesteading, is learning how to repurpose things that maybe aren't its original intended purpose. And that goes well beyond vegetable scraps and stuff like that. We are about to repurpose a bunch of material to make a little house for some goats. So on that note, in this pan here, I've got some goat butter. I like goat butter. It's my favorite type. I would say it's called a tablespoon. Of course, this is a non-stick pan. You can, if you've got a well-seasoned carbon steel or cast iron that you like to use, feel free to use that. But let's let this heat up and talk about eggs a little bit. It might still be a little high. So like I said, your chickens are going to lay a lot of eggs, and these eggshells are great because they contain a lot of calcium. And sometimes you may need to feed that back to your chickens if their eggshells start to get soft or something like that. But for the most part, I throw them into the compost. Now you'll see these are pretty clean, but sometimes they'll have, chicken poop and sawdust and stuff on them, which is great. It adds nitrogen and other things back into the soil. So always crack your eggs on a flat surface, and I like to crack them into, usually not the bowl that I'm going to be using, but in this instance, I didn't feel like bringing multiple bowls out here. You can see there. These eggs are probably a couple of weeks old. Figured I needed to use them. But they're really nice. It's wintertime, so our egg yolks are not quite as deep a red color as I normally like, but they'll get back to that once the chickens get to a little bit more foraging. And I'm probably going to let this butter brown a little bit because I like a little bit of brown butter. But what we'll do is start whisking these eggs. I'll break the yolk, and then I whip the absolute crap out of them. So right now, if you've ever had like yellow and white separated scrambled eggs, that's because they weren't completely incorporated. And so here I'm gonna add some salt. I'd say like for this, probably like 3/4 of a teaspoon. I never really measure it, but do me this favor. Add a little bit more salt than you think you need and try it that way. That will really improve your egg game. And of course you could do this with a fork, but I like to incorporate a little air into it. And I think the whisk is a little bit better. And you'll see here I start to get these little layers of bubbles on top. That is exactly what we are looking for. And we don't want our heat too high. You can see the fire's, I mean, probably medium low. You know, probably a little bit closer to medium. And the butter is just foamy a little bit. So let's get that going. I like to scrape everything from the bowl, make sure it gets in there. Okay, good. So they didn't immediately set up, which is kind of what I'm looking for. But now they're starting to really kind of set up a little bit. And you can just kind of, to help them maintain their fluffiness, go in here and stir a little bit. And these will kind of soak up all that butter that was in the pan. And there's no wrong answer on the butter. You can put in as much or as little as you like, but you do need some amount of fat in the pan. And you'll notice that my eggs are not browning, right? So I'm not getting any brown anywhere. They're staying a nice, beautiful yellow color. If you want to, you can take out the chalazi, but it seems like an extra step. But anyhow, they're not browning, but they are firming up quite nicely. And there you go. It only takes a few seconds. If your eggs start browning, I'd say you've got your heat a little too high. But to each their own. I know some people like that. So what I've done too is I've picked a few garlic chives from my garden because they survive the deep freeze. And that's what I like about having my own vegetables and things, is I can go and harvest what I need as I need it. And let's try that. So with this, I only needed this little bit of chives, and so that's all I took. But I like the garlic chives, you know, a little bit, just something a little different, a little nicer than your traditional onion chive. It's gonna be right. And that's what kind of sucks about doing stuff with a small quantity, though, too, is it's hard to see. Yeah. And so chives actually, and this is true for most of your green alliums, do need to be cut in order to be aromatic and flavorful. And of course, you can add black pepper too if you like that, but if you ask me, those are the perfect scrambled eggs. They are light and fluffy. There we go. And they're even yellow all the way throughout, a little bit of chives to make them good. And they're going to be perfectly seasoned. So you should really experiment with salt and your eggs. I'm not going to add any more salt to them because I know for my taste that's about as much salt as I like in there. But try adding a little bit more salt than you think you need and see how it goes. And on that note, for salt, I always use coarse kosher salt. It's a little bit easier to see and work with, and it's just kind of the standard in most restaurants, and that's what I'm used to cooking with. So, bon appetit, enjoy.